Let's face it, you can have a life that looks successful and still feel like you're carrying way too much. The pressure, the overthinking, the constant weight of holding it all together. This is Live Lighter. I'm Jessica Burke, and this show is for women who are done living like that. Each week, we'll be breaking down what's actually keeping you stuck in that pressure and how to start letting it go so that your life doesn't just look good, it actually feels good. I am so excited about this podcast episode today. It is a conversation that I truly feel every mother would benefit from listening to at any stage of their motherhood journey. My guest today is Jen Burke. She is a therapist, an educator, an entrepreneur, and an advocate for maternal mental health. She is the real deal. She's amazing. I enjoyed every bit of this conversation, and I cannot wait for you to listen in. So take a seat and get ready to be seen, be felt, and be heard fully. Let's get into it. I am super excited about our conversation. And in true mother's fashion, and I'll say this out loud, I went to go look in the mirror to see if I had anything in my teeth before the recording. And then I was like, I didn't brush my teeth this morning because I had my kids both sleeping in my bed and I didn't want to wake them up. So I was like, I'll brush my teeth after coffee.
Yes, that feels right.
They're clean
my
now.
Hair is only half straightened. You can't see it in the back because I also had a kid sleeping in my bed and was like, okay, if I get out of the bed, he's going to wake up. But if I can do certain things without him waking up. So
moms can relate. Yeah, we just roll with it. We roll with it.
I was like, a little more sleep for him or straight hair in the back. I went with sleep.
Yeah. We let our hygiene bar just drop a little bit.
Just drop just a little bit.
So, Jen, what I would love for you to maybe kick us off is tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what are some of the top things that come to mind for you in the discussions that you've been having.
Yeah, so I am a perinatal and infant mental health therapist, and I run a practice in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then with my co-owner, we have a separate postpartum box company to sort of expand our mental health beyond who can be in our couch. I think the things that are coming up the most with my clients are a couple of things. Very obvious things like just caregiver burnout, right? Where it's just like, I am tired. I am frustrated. I want to be patient and I can't be. So I think that's a big one. I think that social media and trying to figure out what the right thing to do as a mom comes up so much. And like, well, I read this book and I read this thing and I watched this video on Instagram and they all said different things. And I still don't know what I'm supposed to do and what the right thing to do is. I think there's a lot of worry about being a good mom and that in a lot of people's brains means doing the right thing. And the tricky thing about being a mom is there's sometimes a right thing and very often I'm going to take my best shot and do the best thing that I can. And so I think that's been coming up a lot. And then just the world's kind of been crazy. And I'm in Michigan, so we have had wildfires from Canada and diarrhea lettuce and all kinds of things happening here. So moms are just like stressed out about like they can't eat berries and they can't eat this and we can't go outside. And so I think just the world has been causing a lot of stress for moms. And that might be, I think that's probably universal, but the specifics of the lettuce and the wildfires might be Michigan specific.
Those are intense. And adding on an already stressful time for moms, which is summer.
Yes.
It's interesting. So I want to dive into all of these and the social media influence that you touched on. I want to just start there because it's top of mind for me. In my alumni community with my clients, we have an open thread, right? And I came across when I started the summer, I did this LinkedIn post where all good intention and all real on what I was experiencing. But I was like, okay, I've realized I only have 7 summers left with both my kids under the same roof. And I'm a data person. So that data helped me in really kind of looking at the summer that usually is the most stressful time of the year for a working mom.
Yeah.
And I was going to approach summer with a different type of mindset, with that in the back of my mind, so that I just kind of loosened up a little bit and let go of the routine. And while that has helped me, right? The flip side of that is I saw this Instagram reel, this comedian who was actually negating that. She's like, can we stop with the guilt? No one's during winter being like, we only have 18 more of sitting by the fire, you know? And
Yeah.
she's like, and 18 is a pretty long time. I'm good with 18. So that one was interesting. And so the social media piece, I would love to get your thoughts on this. That tends to kind of reinforce this guilt that we have as moms as a whole.
Yeah.
And what I am learning in kind of that this example specifically is both get to exist. I get to be very mindful that time is precious, and that helps me not from a scarcity mindset, but more so on as a reminder of where I want to put my priorities. And it still is stressful as hell, and not
Still
having
hard.
routine is not ideal for anyone in our household. So
Yes.
would love to get your thoughts on what comes up for you in your field and the people that you kind of support.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said is such a big part of the work is the holding the duality of it, of like, I can both recognize that there's a value in this and still feel like this is really, really hard. This past weekend, I texted one of my best friends, was like, I love my child so, so much. And also, this weekend needs to end. Like, I need a break because it's just hard, right? I think the idea that we should just enjoy every moment is lovely and also unrealistic. And so I think the guilt gets driven by having very normal human emotions about a human experience in parenting that we wouldn't have about other relationships, right? If I was frustrated with a spouse or if I was frustrated with my dog, like I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's a normal thing to happen in relationships. I think when we're parenting, we sometimes think we're supposed to be robots who just love and feel joy and empathy all the time. It's just not real because they're humans and we're trying to figure this all out together. And one of my favorite things to tell clients when they're like, I feel guilty because I didn't this and this person made spinach muffins from scratch or whatever. And I gave my kid a pack of muffins this morning. Like, a lot of it, I say guilt is a really helpful emotion if you feel like you've done something that you want to learn from and you want to repair. It is super unhelpful if it's just veering into shame of like, I actually don't care or have time to make muffins from scratch. So I'm cool with the muffins I bought at the store, but I feel bad because somebody else is doing X, Y, or Z thing, right? Like I always say, like, if it's not teaching you anything, it's not a helpful emotion anymore.
Ooh,
We can have
that's
grief that we don't have time to make the muffins from scratch. But guilt's like, you're not doing anything wrong. There's nothing for you to repair. There's nothing for you to learn from here. So let's try to figure out how to have empathy for ourselves instead of guilt for ourselves.
I love that. I love that because that's such a good compass to have in those moments when guilt starts coming in, which is
Yeah.
daily as a mom.
Yeah.
Asking ourselves, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is just asking yourself, is this guilt for me to learn from, or is this guilt leading into shame? And that being
Yeah.
your indicator of whether you're going to have
Yeah.
space for it.
Yeah, for sure. If you're saying, okay, yes, I could have reacted to that situation differently, right? And I want to go repair it with my child and say, Mom was so frustrated and I'm so sorry that I did X, Y, or Z thing. I got mad. I was impatient. That's guilt that's useful, right? For the moment. And then we repair. And it's hard sometimes to move on from the guilt even after the repair, but you've done the learning. And so it's time for the moving on. But if it's guilt that's just like, I wish I could have, I think I should have, the internet told me to do this book said I did this wrong. It's not helping us to do anything except get stuck and be not present because we're so worried about doing everything wrong that we're not even paying attention to what we are doing sometimes.
And isn't it always the louder on what we're doing wrong versus what we're doing right?
Yes, our brains are very good at filtering out the good and leaving in the like, oh, I did all these things wrong today, right? Or even sometimes that like one thing is the thing that sticks and the rest of the day was great, right? But there's this one thing. Our brains just like to make us sort of remember the stuff that doesn't feel so good and be very like dismissive of all the things we might have done well.
Yes, yes, that's so true. And it happens in an instant into this spiral of I'm doing everything wrong. This is scarcity and all this other stuff. So
Yep.
it does happen like that. And we can
Yeah.
and with the awareness we can get ourselves out of it too.
Yes. Yeah. It's being reflective about it and knowing that that's your internal voice getting triggered somehow. In infant mental health, we call it the shark music. It's like the Jaws music that's always in the background. It's always there. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet, but it can get triggered like that. And if you know, like, okay, when I get, passed by for somebody else, or when I get rejected, or when my child is tantruming in public or whatever it is, if you know that that's going to trigger your shark music, you're like, I'm not doing this well enough. I'm not good enough. Somebody else is always going to be, doing it better than me. It's helpful to be able to label like, oh, that's the Jaws music coming for me
Mm,
again. Like, it's okay. Like, this is not a moment that we need the Jaws music, but it's helpful to know what our stuff is so that we can be reflective of like, man, that phone call really didn't need to ruin my entire
yeah.
day because it doesn't define my worth as a person. And I knew that 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. I will share just where the Jaws music has gotten loud for me. It's usually in public settings if I have a human moment with my child.
Mm-hmm.
And I try, I am a grounded, centered human being and I'm human. So
Mm-hmm.
if my nervous system is pushed and push and push and push, my voice is going to get loud. That's my response pattern. And not every time, but there's been times where I have been in public and I may have gotten a louder voice than I would have wanted. And so that's when all of a sudden the jaws get so loud. It's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, they think I'm the worst mother. Not I think I'm the worst mother. They think
Yes.
I am. I
Yeah.
know that I'm a human being, but they don't.
Yeah. And not even your kids, right? It's not even like, oh my gosh, my kids think I'm being a horrible mother. It's like these other people I'm probably never going to see again are thinking something about me. But it is also partially that even as we've like healed and evolved, there's a tiny part of us that probably still worries about that, right? Like,
Always.
am I a horrible mom? Am I this? Am I like, and mine is also a public thing when, I think we were in a restaurant recently, which why I took a 14-month-old to a sit down restaurant, I don't know.
You're
And he
ambitious.
started just like throwing things as 14-month-olds do. And everybody around us thought it was very cute. And I literally felt like I was breaking out in hives. I was just like, we have to get out of here. My flight instinct was strong. I grabbed him. I'm like, I'm so, so sorry. And then I'm thinking, what am I doing? He's 14 months. I can correct the behavior and not let him throw a fork at somebody's head. But like, also, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. And I'm not failing as a mom because he's being slightly inconvenient in this moment to the restaurant environment, which I should say it was like a brunch place. He was eating like a Mickey Mouse pancake, but it's that the shark music doesn't have to make sense. It's just knowing that it's there.
Yes. And to your point, you can do an immense amount of healing. And this journey, we are all a work in progress. It's not to say that we're not going to have shark music moments.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just
And like
life.
realize it sometimes in the moment. And sometimes for me, it was like I got all the way outside of the sidewalk and was like bouncing him around and walking. And I'm like, why are we out here? It's hot. And you weren't doing anything wrong. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. And we did go back in. But I mean, I do this for a living and it took me 15 minutes of hives and then a trip to the sidewalk to be like, okay, wait, actually, I'm not failing here. And nobody else thinks I'm failing.
I love, and that's the key too, right? Is no one else is even thinking about that.
No.
Yeah. One of the things that you mentioned was when we, as mothers, our expectation with our kids is to be this, this fairy tale, like birds are singing, they just feel nothing but love. But when it's with other relationships that we have, we don't hold that same level of expectation. So tell me more about that, on what you see and how to approach that.
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of work during pregnancy and postpartum, and I think it starts there because often, the experience that people expect to have or think they're going to have or want to have isn't the experience they have during pregnancy or delivery or postpartum because we don't have a lot of control over a lot of those situations in terms of what's happening medically, what's happening hormonally. And so I think that the guilt often starts there of like, I didn't immediately just only feel joy about having this newborn baby in my life. Or sometimes I didn't even like bond initially. Like I was like, what have I done with my life? And so I think it often starts there where we have this expectation of if they're not put in our arms and we're just suddenly like, the whole world just turned into rainbows and butterflies, we already think we're failing. And it just continues their whole childhood, right? And probably into their adulthoods, but I haven't wrapped my mind around that part of life yet. But I think it just continues. We just think like, I should understand that this is developmentally appropriate and not be frustrated. I want them to always feel loved and safe and like, everything is, I'm always responding to them in a way that makes them feel loved and safe. And yes, those are important things, but those are not the same things as always responding perfectly or always knowing exactly what to do or always being patient or always being completely calm. It's not realistic. And sometimes it's not even helpful for kids for us to be like just level all the time because they also need to experience us as humans and to see us having human experiences too.
And loving ourselves through that.
Yeah. And repairing with them through that.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
there are going to be relationship moments of disruption, even when you're doing your very best, right? Like even in moments where you're like, I'm nailing this, you might still be getting like the cue wrong, right? Or suddenly it's like they wanted this for lunch and you made it and now they don't want that for lunch and you're frustrated, right? Like you're not doing anything wrong, but you can still have these moments of disruption in the relationship that the repair is such a big component of. And I think we often feel like the repair means we failed because we had to get to the repair at all. But the repair is just, research will say that's like 60% of secure attachment is the repair. And the other 40 is like, you got it right the first time. But it's hard to get it right the first time.
It's so hard. And the repair. So I would love for you to talk more about that for anyone who's not familiar with the term repair. I personally have, it has become my favorite part of being a parent because it really, what I have found is that when I allow myself to have human moments in front of my kids, and then I also allow myself to go and be human with them and the apology, like mommy probably shouldn't, and I'm human, and not saying from like, I'm so sorry, but more so letting them see that I acknowledge that I had a human moment and I'm safe in that and that I'm still lovable in that. It's showing them that they get to be human too. All parts of them get to be loved.
Yeah.
That's become one of my favorite experiences as a parent. And I also love that you talked about when you hold your baby for the first time, not all moms are like, oh my God, I love you, and and some are in varying degrees, but I know a lot of people who didn't. And there is so much guilt that gets tied to it because women don't talk about it because they are immediately shaming themselves. So then they hide it and they don't talk openly about it. And then really, that's actually a very normal response and they don't know it. So thank you for saying that out loud.
Response. Yeah, it's such a normal response. So I think the repair part, I think you just modeled it perfectly, right? It's like you're going back and just saying, wow, like I had a moment where I got really frustrated and I probably shouldn't have done, whatever. I shouldn't have snapped at you. I shouldn't have gotten frustrated. I bet that made you feel really sad. And I'm so sorry about that. I'm going to try to do better next time. The amazing thing about kids is they have so much more grace than we have for ourselves. And they're like, great, it's okay. Like, it's fine. They usually move on pretty fast with the repair. And it also can be just modeling of like even something that's not relational, right? If they see you doing something that you're later like, oh man, I shouldn't have gotten road rage and beeped at whoever and they're asking about it, right? It's okay to go back and say like, wonder if that was scary for you when I was beeping my horn. I got really upset with somebody, but maybe that wasn't the right thing to do, right? So being able to just label the experience, name it. I think a huge part of it is being able to hold your experience and their experience together at the same time and make space for both of those things to exist, because it's like, I've done something, you felt something as a result, and now we're going to like talk through that process and it's going to be okay. I kind of think that's what we need to do for ourselves, even in those moments where you're like, if you're a mom who's like, I don't immediately just feel all the feels right now that I thought I would feel, some of it is just like having that same kind of grace for yourself of like, in this moment, I don't feel all those things because who knows, right? Your whole life just changed. You've been through a medical trauma. Oh, who knows, right? There's so many reasons you might not feel what you thought you were going to feel. So sometimes it's almost like having repair with yourself too, even retrospectively, being able to, in the present, talk to yourself in that moment and say like, so sorry that I was so hard on you in that moment. Like you were going through so much and all I did was shame you instead of recognizing like, man, this is a really hard experience and it's okay that you feel whatever it is you feel.
The repair with the self is also equally powerful and beautiful. And what I have found is with my own experience of my inner child work is when I'm going back and I'm healing and like rewiring, what I'm doing is I am letting the little version of me, I'm letting her feelings be valid. And I'm letting her be seen and held in that. And so it all comes down when you were talking about the repair between like holding space for both. What I was also hearing is letting yourself and their feelings be valid and heard and seen. I felt this way. I was frustrated. And I know that this made you feel that way. So it's powerful.
Yeah. I think that knowing that your feelings are valid also helps you know that like your experience is real and it matters. And I think when we try to say, well, that's not the right feeling or stop feeling that, we just invalidate the entire experience somebody is having. The reality is, I'm a firm believer that the feeling is not wrong ever. Sometimes the reaction can be not what we want it to be or cannot match the magnitude of the feeling or the situation. But that's not the same thing. Like moderating your reaction is not the same thing as negating your feelings.
That needs to be on a coffee mug.
I mean, for kids too, right? Like it's like we can teach them that they aren't supposed to like hit when they're mad, but that's not the same thing as telling them to stop being mad. And those two things get conflated so much, right? Where kids don't hear the messaging of, yes, you're mad and being mad is totally okay. And how do we take care of the mad so that we're not hitting people is very different than stop hitting people. Because that doesn't help them to understand that there are two different things happening at the same time.
I love your call out there in validating the emotion that's being felt and also having that be its own piece while also calling out the reaction.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's like, are we responding to it the way that we want to or the way that we want to teach our kids to is a totally legitimate question, right? Because we can't just all act on our feelings the way that we might impulsively want to all the time. But that isn't the same thing, right? As saying, you're feeling the wrong thing in this moment, right? That's a totally different thing than saying your reaction is maybe not the best for this moment.
Yeah, and bringing that dialogue back to ourselves as well.
Yeah, for sure. I know. We're our own worst critics and invalidators.
Yes. And I want everyone to hear this. When Jen was talking about the self-dialogue back to the self is even in that moment, allowing yourself to be tender and holding space for yourself. Please do not brush that off as something that's silly. That self-talk and holding space for yourself is so powerful, and I can attest to how healing it can be in that moment. And I'll give an example. I always give an example of me and my husband. We have a wonderful marriage, but it's the first thing that comes to mind as far as good examples of being human. So I'm a business entrepreneur, right? In my first 3 years. And along the way, I've collected many different things that I've done. I've been a sound healer. I've been a yoga teacher. And this was all before my coaching and some of it mixed in with it. So we were doing a garage sale and I have all these like big microphone things for my sound healing that I was trying to do online. I mean, it was ridiculous. I also had my corporate job. So I was less
Yeah.
conscious of budget. And he's like, oh, what hobby was this? And he walked out the door. And I sat there in the kitchen, and part of me wanted to go after him because there was a wound that he tapped into that he didn't know he did. But for
Yeah.
me, it was an insecurity, and I wanted to go after him. And then instead, I sat in the kitchen and I did that self-talk to myself. I was like, that hurt you a little, didn't it? Like, yeah, that was, you're feeling insecure, you're feeling not validated. And I just held space for myself, and I even hugged myself. And I was able to, just validating my feelings, validating my emotions, I was able to give myself what I needed versus chasing down and trying to fix it by shouting at him, you know?
Yeah.
So I share that because that self-talk that you brought up is so powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is normal in relationships, right? We want to get compassion and love and care from other people. And we also need to give it to ourselves. And sometimes we need to give it to versions of ourselves that didn't get it at other times, right? It's like my favorite, you said the hug, like, and I know it sounds weird to people sometimes, right? But my favorite thing is like closing eyes and like hand on the chest and like, what did you need to hear at that time in your life, right? And it's so powerful to do. I've done it even this week with a client about like a childhood version of herself, right? What did you need to hear? I needed to hear I wasn't alone, right? And what it felt like to like just feel the pressure of her hand on her chest. And, you know, I think having my presence there was helpful, but it wasn't me, right? I wasn't doing it. I was just helping her know it was okay for her to tell herself what she needed to hear.
And the amount of self-love I have found that comes from being more tender to past versions of yourself is immense.
Yes, because we always have more empathy for other people than we have for ourselves. My co-owner, Amy, she says it a little harsher than I just said it. She will often say like, well, what makes you so special that you don't deserve what you're giving to everybody else? And
So true.
I think that that's the question, right? Is like, why do we think we're the exception to what everybody else gets? That everybody else is worthy of love or empathy or forgiveness or compassion, but like we are not the ones who get to get that.
I love that. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Good reflection.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that you mentioned was the identity shifts that happen in motherhood, from whether it be the identity shift that happens the minute you hold the baby in your arms, or the identity shift where you go back to work after maternity leave. Or I feel that, you know, being a mom, it is just, we as individuals are constantly growing, expanding, shifting in and of ourselves. And in that, we're also shifting how we are showing up as a mom along that path as well.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear from you. What's some of the things that you see the most as far as like challenges that women are facing as moms when it comes to these identity shifts, and what's some advice that you have?
Yeah, I think you named a bunch of them, right? Like, I think the going back to work or not going back to work, if you decide like that is a huge thing. And sometimes people are surprised by how they feel, right? Like, there's lots of times I will work with somebody during pregnancy who's like, I have to go back to work. I know that like that's what I'm going to want to do. That's who I am. And then they're, you know, in it and they're like, I don't want to go back to work. And what does that mean about me? The reality is it means absolutely nothing about you, right? It means that you're having a moment in your life where the identity as a mom is the thing that you're leaning into or is taking up a bigger piece of the puzzle than some of the other stuff that used to take up bigger pieces of the puzzle. But you didn't lose all those pieces just because you're shifting where the energy is going. And I think that's so important. I also think like I often remind both myself and others, you were a full person before you were a mom, and you are allowed to still be a full person and a mom. And what that looks like is different for everybody. And for some people, the mom part of it feels like the full experience. And for other people, they're like, I really need to get out and go do this thing. You know, I need to go do yoga. I need to go learn to play the piano. I need to go sit in my car and stare at the sky for 30 minutes a day. Whatever it is, right? Like you are allowed to still be a human and mom. Like, you are not just suddenly encapsulated by one thing. And I think that that's such a huge part of it. And I think you're also right that, like, we give a lot of space and understanding that our kids are going to grow developmentally, right? That they're going to go through phases and stages. But so are we as parents, because we're growing alongside them. Yes, we're supposed to know what we're doing, but we are all just learning it with them. And so as they shift or they become more independent or they are less in need of you at every given moment, you might also lean back into other parts of your identity that felt less important at other stages. And so in giving ourselves space of like the radical acceptance of like, whatever I am right now is actually okay. And it doesn't mean it has to be who I am for the rest of my life.
I love that. One of the things that you said where it becomes an energy shift, I feel it's an energy shift more so than even an identity shift. It's just there's different phases of your life and your journey as a mother and as an individual and together and separately that your energy is going to go in different places. And I personally feel that my experience has been is motherhood is just, we never know exactly what's going on because every single phase is a new thing.
New. Yeah.
It's a whole new thing. So there's every single phase has different levels of either letting go, leaning in, and our energy is going to shift based on those phases.
Yeah. And kind of like knowing, I think two things. One is if you have multiple kids, it's also still going to shift with those kids differently than it did. You know, I think sometimes it's like that's another piece of the guilt. Sometimes people feel like, well, I didn't do it this way, or I should have done it that way. You know, it's like, well, your kids are all different human beings. And so your values as a parent can stay the same, but your execution of those values might not look the same all the time for those different children and their needs. So I think that's part of it. But also being able to, the independent stuff is like you're holding your own experience of some relief and joy in their new stuff. And also the grief of, oh, they're never going to be that again. Right. And so you're holding that while they're also holding the excitement of like, oh my gosh, I get to go to my friend's house by myself. And oh my gosh, that's so scary. Like, I've never done that before. So we're having these parallel experiences with our kids a lot of the time. And I think sometimes don't realize that we're on kind of the same trajectory with them.
Yes, it is a dichotomy that is happening for both the kid and the parent, where to your point, one of my other female founder friends, her daughter just went to sleepaway camp. And so she was saying how she was having all this like joy in seeing her daughter go and be independent to do this and have the confidence to, because that's what she's been working towards as a mom.
Yeah.
And the grief of my daughter is okay with not being with me for 2 weeks, you know?
Yes.
And both get to exist.
Yes, you can feel both at the same time, and most people will, right? Like lots of people will feel both at the same time because there is, I think being a mom is a constant back and forth or holding simultaneously joy and grief all at the same time. And it's right, you know, again, it's right from the beginning. I think you think about like, for me, my personal initial experience of postpartum was like, I wanted this. You know, I had to do fertility treatment. Like, I wanted this. I worked so hard for this. And I'm so in love with this baby. And also, what have I done? Like, what is happening in my life? And is this what my life is going to look like for the rest of my life? You know, I mean, there was so much happening. And luckily, I had enough prior knowledge to know that all of that was normal and real, but it started there, right? And then since then it's like, oh my gosh, you're crawling and I'm so excited, but also you're already crawling and that makes me sad, or you're already going to your friend's house or sleepaway camp. It's just a constant holding of both experiences.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So is there anything else that you feel for the listeners that you want to make sure they know, or any topics that you feel come across your path consistently enough where you're like, I want to put this out there for you to rest assured or to hear from me?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the biggest thing that comes up I would say in more sessions than not, or with more clients than not, or friends even, is, I think I sort of referenced this earlier, is the idea of like, I know that there's sweatshirts and bags and all these things that now have these phrases of you are worthy, you are enough. But I think really being able to like integrate that for yourself of like, especially as a mom, I have never come across a mom in my work, and I'm not saying that there isn't one that exists somewhere, but I've never come across a mom in my work who didn't think her baby was worthy of love the minute that they were born. But somehow we've decided we're not always worthy of the things we are wanting to give to our kids. So it's like, I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel love. I want them to feel empathy. I want them to know that they can make mistakes and that that's not failing. And in the same breath, we're like, but I made a mistake and somehow I'm failing. So sometimes I, really think like integrate that you are just as worthy as the child that you're caring for, because you are never going to be able to help them feel that as intensely as you want to if you don't feel it about yourself. And I think that's such a big part of it for women and moms. Your needs do not make you needy. They do not make you a failure. They make you a human who is worthy of having those needs met.
Absolutely. So if someone wanted to start rebuilding, repairing that relationship with themselves, where do you suggest that they start?
I mean, one of my favorite questions, and it can be a harder, bigger question, right? But one of my favorite questions to ask people is like, if you picture yourself at 5 years old, what do you feel and what did you need? And usually the answer to that question is the thing that's getting in the way of us thinking that we're worthy, right? It's like, I needed to feel not alone, or I needed to know my experiences were valid, or I needed to know that I wasn't too much just because I was an emotional kid or whatever it is, right? And so being able to start there of like, what did I need to hear throughout my life that I didn't hear? Even if you had amazing, wonderful, great parents, we all needed to hear something we didn't hear because we're humans and people can't get it right all of the time.
Yeah, we're humans being raised by humans.
Yes. And so like, what did you need to hear? Start there. Just saying that to yourself over and over and over again, I think is a good place to start with, like, trying to give yourself the grace and love that you might be giving other people.
Absolutely. That inner child within us all, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've actually found, so with my inner child work, there's been certain times where I've visualized a younger version of myself, like her head in my lap, and I'm just stroking her hair. And the love I feel for her, the compassion and empathy that I feel for her is the equivalent of what I feel for my kids. And if they're laying in my lap, that same feeling. And to develop that, it started with me connecting with the younger version of me.
Yeah. Well, because we have to be able to know what the felt experience of something is to really give it in the way that we want to. And that's not to say we can't like fake it till we make it in certain cases. And like understanding how that feels is so important for giving it to somebody else. But we don't have to understand it by somebody else giving it to us. Like we can also give it to ourselves and then understand that's what it feels like to be safe. That's what it feels like to be held.
This has been so beautiful and valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.
You so much for having time to come on here, just share your wisdom, share your experience, and just the journey of motherhood.
Thank you for having an open space to do that.
Absolutely. So, Jen, how can people, if people want to start working with you, and I know you do virtual, right? So you don't have to be in Michigan. If people wanted to start working with you, how can they find you? What's some of the core ways that they could work with you?
Yeah. So our therapy practice is Rise Wellness Collaborative in Ann Arbor. And that's also our Instagram link for that. We can only do therapy with people in Michigan, but we do like consultations and both with individuals. And we also do like some workplace consultations with places trying to improve maternity leave policies and things like that. And then our box company is Bloom and Rise, and we're also on Instagram online. And that's just a way that we have expanded. I mean, it's cute stuff that goes in the box, but we also include very practical mental health supports that we've created, that we've curated, because not everybody is in Michigan and not everybody can get to our couch. And we want everybody to still feel the same level of support as they're navigating that identity shift into motherhood.
So Bloom and Rise, correct me if I'm wrong, that's where it's like a care package that you can send to new moms?
Yeah. So we have a couple different ones. There's one for new moms, and then there's one that you can send to mom and baby. And both of those can be ordered as one or through the whole year, that they'll get quarterly at different phases. And so the stuff is curated based on the phase they might be in, because it's different 6 months in than it is 2 days in. And then we have other boxes. We have ones for big siblings so that they're transitioning. And then we try to sort of have something for the full range of experience. So we have, pregnancy loss boxes as well. So just kind of like something to show up with, like, it's like care at your doorstep, because we want to be able to reach. We know that the reality is so many women are experiencing these things and there's not enough resources. And while we can't individually help every person, we can send something with some encouragement, some resources to people to help them in these phases.
Amazing. Well, now I know, I mean, a lot of my friends are past the new kid stage, but not to say I don't have family members who aren't. And I wish this was around when I was a new mom. That's incredible.
Yeah, we are excited. I mean, it's fun to do, but it's also nice to know that, like, again, we all have enough stuff being marketed to us as moms. And so, yes, there is some stuff in there, but we really intentionally want it to be helpful stuff that really speaks to, like, what do you actually need a month into being a new mom, 6 months into being a new mom. And yeah, we all want the cute sweatshirt, which is in there, but like also some research backed, books or mindfulness cards or things.
Well, so if you know someone that is a new mom or has gone through some phase of motherhood, whether it be a celebration or loss, please go look up Jen's business, Bloom and Rise.
Yes, Bloom and Rise.
Bloom and Rise. Or go work with her in her therapy practice
Yes.
or her consulting.
Yes.
Jen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll have all of the information on how to work with Jen in the show notes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you, everyone, and be well. All right, so that's today's podcast. Thank you for listening. If you would like to learn more about the services that I provide to women, you can check out my website at jessbergcoaching.com. That's JESSBERGCOACHING.com. Until next time, be well.